Constructed during the tough times of the Great Depression, the Silver Arrows were renowned Mercedes Grand Prix vehicles that served as a dominant force on the racetrack, surpassing all opposition. Hitler was a keen enthusiast of the sport and decided to support domestic manufacturers by providing a substantial sum of 500,000 Deutsche Marks. While Mercedes aspired to take the entirety of this financial support, a novel company tried to claim a portion of it in order to fund their own V16 racing program. The story begins with Ferdinand Porsche, who established a new development and consultancy firm in collaboration with his son-in-law Anton Piech and a trusted friend and racing driver for Mercedes, Adolf Rosenberger. The company was tasked by the Wanderer brand to design a race car, but the financially struggling company was ultimately forced to shut down and became integrated into a larger conglomerate. This association became famous as Auto Union, merging 4 automobile manufacturers into a single entity: Audi, Wanderer, DKW, and Horst. Despite this process, Porsche remained unwaveringly diligent, and soon after the merge, with the assistance of another engineer, Karl Rabe, the company presented the board with a new motorsport project. Regrettably for Mercedes, this represented a tough competitor for the upcoming seasons. The car was constructed in adherence to a fresh regulation that specified a maximum drive weight of 750 kilograms, excluding driver and tires, which the authorities anticipated would result in engines with an approximate capacity of 2.5 liters. The project was dubbed the P-Wagon, with the P signifying Porsche. Rabe was responsible for the chassis development, while Josef Kahles attended to the engine. The initial tests were conducted in the autumn of 1933 at the Nürburgring racetrack, and they exhibited tremendous promise. The development team ultimately opted for a rear mid-placed engine situated within a leather frame, accompanied by an entirely independent suspension. The power plant was one-of-a-kind creation, meticulously constructed by Porsche specifically for this task. Porsche's goal was to create a large engine that would generate substantial power at low RPM without the need for high revs. To achieve this, they decided to build a narrow V-shaped 16-cylinder engine with a small bore. This engine was designed to fit into the slim form of the car. The first model, the 1934 Auto Union Type A, featured cylinders measuring 68 by 75 mm, which resulted in a displacement of 4.4 liters, a significant difference from the 2.5-liter estimation. The engine was equipped with a single-root supercharger that provided a decent boost of 0.61 bar. At just 2700 rpm, the engine generated an impressive 530 Nm of torque and 295 horsepower at 4500 rpm. For its time, the engine was technically advanced and remains remarkable even today. Except for a few luxury automobiles such as Marmon or Cadillac, the V16 concept was not commonly used, and a straight 8 engine was the preferred choice. Drawing inspiration from aircraft engines, the all-aluminum engine was built with forged steel wet liners that could accommodate much larger bores in the future. The narrow 45-degree angle allowed for even firing and compact footprint. Additionally, the design was simplified as there was only a single overhead camshaft in the middle held by 9 plain bearings, which operated all 32 valves. The intake valves placed inside were managed directly by finger followers, while the outer exhaust valves were operated by push rods and rocker arms set at a 90-degree valve angle. This design created a hemispherical combustion chamber, which, in combination with flat-top pistons, resulted in a compression ratio of 7:1. The crankshaft was constructed of a durable forged chromium nickel steel alloy and rested on 10 roll bearings. The block itself was cast with robust webs and deep skirts, allowing the sum to be a non-structural piece. The Rose-type supercharger was situated vertically behind the engine, conserving space and supplying air through a 2-barrel Solex carburetor to the intake, located low between the cylinders. This layout saved a substantial amount of space in comparison to a conventional top-mounted intake manifold. The camshaft, oil pumps, supercharger, and Bosch magnetos were all powered by a gear-driven shaft. Nonetheless, the rear mid-place power plant presented handling difficulties caused by the weight being concentrated over the rear axle, despite providing additional room for the driver. In 1935, the Type B emerged onto the racing scene, showcasing a large engine with a displacement of 5 liters. The engine incorporated larger pistons, with increased bores measuring 72.5 mm and added domes to boost the compression ratio to an impressive 8.25 to 1. In addition, they raised the boost level to 0.75 bar to keep pace with fast Mercedes, resulting in a power output of 375 horsepower and torque of 660 Nm. These vehicles were so incredibly powerful that drivers often experienced wheel spin at speeds of 160 km/h while shifting, despite the weight distribution being 40 to 60.
80 years ago,
The ultimate iteration of the V16 automobile engine was introduced during the 1936 and 1937 racing seasons. This time, the engine was modified with an enlarged bore and stroke altogether, housing a Heath-produced multi-piece crankshaft on plain bearings. The conrods were forged from a single piece of metal and operated on needle bearings. The innovative design of Carless allowed for a limitless range of engine displacement, with the engine growing to a massive 6-liter size, featuring cylinders measuring 75 by 85 mm. The base power output was estimated to be around 500 horsepower with a compression ratio of 9.2 to 1. However, the Type C's top models received an additional supercharger which easily delivered 1 bar of boost. The most powerful variant of the Type C produced 630 horsepower at 5,000 rpm, with the torque reaching an astounding 882 Nm. These statistics allowed the car to achieve a top speed of over 400 km/h, inspiring Automotive to break the land speed record with a streamlined version. Bernd Rosemeyer, one of the 3 pilots who mastered the tricky handling of Auto Union's Silver Arrows, along with Tazio Nuvolari and Hans Stuck, was called for this task. Rosemeyer achieved a remarkable speed of 432 km/h, but unfortunately, he lost his life during another attempt due to heavy side wind, crashing into a forest at 300 km/h. The V16 engine of the Auto Union Silver Arrows was not without its flaws, particularly due to carburetor's inability to respond to abrupt throttle changes. The engine often misfired, sending a flame into the intake and igniting the air-fuel mixture inside. This put significant stress on the supercharger and other components, and in an attempt to remedy this, a wastegate system was implemented to vent fuel into the atmosphere. However, this posed a health hazard to passing drivers, as the toxic fuel could cause respiratory issues and even coughing of blood. Alongside the high speeds these machines were capable of, this is a great example of how astonishingly dangerous the motorsport was during the 1930s and 1940s. In terms of their racing success, the Auto Union Silver Arrows were quite formidable, boasting an impressive record of 25 GP victories between 1935 and 1937. The Type D model developed after the last V16 engine used a V12, which was half its size, but with roughly the same power. Interestingly, it's been rumored that Porsche even went so far as producing a 6.3-liter 16-cylinder variant with 77mm bores, specifically for the purpose of breaking records. After the war, many of these cars were seized by the Soviets as war booty, as the Automotive factory at Zwickau was situated in the Soviet-controlled East Germany. Automotive was subsequently forced to relocate to Ingolstadt in West Germany, which now serves as the headquarters for Audi. The surviving cars were sent to the USSR for scientific research purposes, resulting in the absence of any Type A and B models today. Only a single Type C is on display at the German museum, while 3 Type Ds are still in existence.